Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups on the LNL research page shown on your screen, along with many other great study groups that you might be interested in joining. We do also have a Facebook group, and we do meet twice a week on Zoom. We meet Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time and Saturdays from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom meetings. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just email us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out weekly updates about once a week to let you know what we're doing that week, along with the Zoom links. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of our podcast episodes, as well as previous Q&As with Jim and Austin Bridges, Gary Bean, and Trisha Bean from the LNL Research Channeling team. Again, you can contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you would like to join any of our future Q&A sessions. Otherwise, we are blessed once again to be joined by Mr. Jim McCarty for some informal conversation and Q&A about the Law of One and how to live it in our daily lives. How are you doing today, Jim?
Doing well, doing well. Glad to get through the technological hiccup here, because
Yes.
I have no technological ability at all.
I am not a tech whiz either myself, but I'm glad that we made it work today. It is the beginning of December, and I believe you've had some pretty cold days in Louisville. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the last, I guess, 5 or 6 days, we've been around 18 to 20 degrees for lows and made 29 to 30 for highs, but that's going to change this weekend. We'll get back up into the 50s and even have rain next Monday, maybe.
Wow. Nice. Well, it is a beautiful change of seasons happening in Seattle as well, and it's a beautiful time of year. Since this is the month of the Christmas holiday, as well as Hanukkah, and as well as Kwanzaa and other important holidays, I did want to ask you a couple questions to start off with, and I did want to remind folks who are on the Zoom call right now, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Jim, go ahead, put them in the chat window, and we will have questions pretty much in the order that I see them there. And I do see a few questions sitting there already. Jim, if you don't mind, as I mentioned, since it is the month of the Christmas holidays, I was wondering if we could take a little bit of time here to talk about your relationship with that entity known as Jesus Christ. If I remember right, you had what could be called a come to Jesus moment back in 2015. I believe this was not too long after Carla had passed into larger life, and I believe it was like right before a homecoming event. Am I remembering the timing of that correctly?
Right. It was August 31st, just before when we had homecomings in September. And I was meditating here in the living room. And I always start off my day with meditations. And that day, I just got the impulse to ask the Creator to come into my heart. And nothing happened. Then I thought, well, that's probably because the Creator's already there. And so I asked Jesus to come into my heart. And all of a sudden, my heart started beating fast and I was crying. And I knew that Jesus was there. So that is an experience that has been with me ever since. And I'm so grateful for it because Carla was a follower of Jesus her whole life long. In her magical garden, she went there when between 2 and 5 years of age, about 50 times, and always saw Jesus. And he never spoke a word to her, just looked into her eyes, and she knew immediately what unconditional love was. So that was a very special experience for me to have Jesus come into my heart.
Wow. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Jesus before that? Because I know you said that you had gone to church for some period in your youth. But not later, if I recall correctly. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that with our viewers?
I did go to church. I was raised a Presbyterian when I was a kid. I went all the way through college. I would come back home in summers and be with my mom and dad, but it didn't make any impression on me at all, that type of religion. It just didn't, it's like water off a duck's back. But later on, as I, joined Don and Carla in the Raw Contact, I knew that Carla was, totally devoted to Jesus. And I was wanting to have the same kind of experience, but I hadn't felt it. I didn't really know if it was possible. So when it came time for me to challenge contacts, Carla always challenged him in the name of Jesus Christ. And she said 3 times, do you come in the name of Jesus Christ? Can you say that Jesus Christ is Lord? So I tried to get as close as I could. Do you come in the name of Christ consciousness? And that was as close as I could get when I would challenge then. But now, since I've had my experience and Carla's passed in a larger life, I do the same challenge she does and use the same preparation, the tuning process that she does for all of our channelings here.
Wow, beautiful. And do you talk to Jesus, talk with Jesus, like in any kind of physical, metaphysical way on a average day?
No, I don't. I feel both Jesus's presence and Carla's presence many times, but I don't actually speak with them.
Nice. So, what does Christmas feel like for you? Does it have any special meaning beyond maybe what normal people do with Christmas? Do you celebrate Christmas with trees and lights? Do you listen to Christmas music or anything like that?
I've gone through a process of evolution there. Carla's mom loved Christmas. And the first thing I did after I joined Don and Carla, before we had the raw contact, was to go over to her mom and dad's house where her grandmother was as well. We were opening Christmas presents. And her mom loved Christmas so much that she'd give you a pair of stockings, 1 sock in each package, because she wanted to have more packages. And when a person opened their package, they would go over to the person that gave them the package and give them a hug. So opening Christmas presents was a long process. It took about 6 hours that day. So after Carla's mom passed away in the larger life, Carla had gatherings here for her 2 brothers and their children. And we went through a similar process. We didn't put stockings, in separate packages or anything, but we had Christmas here. And it was my job before Christmas. I don't know if you remember when you're here, in the kitchen and around the living room and the office, we have a crystal and china and some silver. And I would always polish up the china and the silver. I'd put them in the dishwasher and get them all clean and have it sparkling because, over a period of time, silver tarnishes. And the crystal, you can't really tell it, but it really helps it to wash it up. So I've continued doing that over the years now. And later this month, I will continue washing all of that, getting it sparkly clean and shiny in memory of Carla. And the first few years after she passed in a larger life, I did get a Christmas tree and decorate it with the same ornaments we had. There's some that went back to 1972 when she and Don were together, and that before I met them. And but I guess after 3 or 4 years, I decided I did not like the commercial aspect of Christmas, giving and receiving presents. It just seemed to me to demean the meaning of Christmas. It is the Mass of Christ. It is not the Mass of money. And so I don't give Christmas presents. I ask people, do not give me a Christmas present. Make a donation to some charity. So that's how I've evolved over the years concerning Christmas.
What a beautiful sentiment. I'm guessing there are a lot of people who feel the same way with you as you about the commercialization of Christmas. So, yeah, I really appreciate your sharing that. And as someone myself who has had a fairly long love-hate relationship with the church, I can really relate to what you're talking about. I've always loved Jesus, still do. It's just the church and Christianity as an organized religion I've had some issues with.
Yeah.
I guess one last question, and then I'll go to the chat window. Do you have any thoughts to share with other Law of One seekers who might be turned off to the Christian overtones and undertones they see in channelings because of their own negative experiences or associations with the church?
I'd say that again. I'm not really not sure if I catch the drift of your query.
I think I have heard some folks, on different, Facebook pages or something comment that they feel a little bit turned off sometimes by the Christian
Oh,
themes, overtones, undertones that they see in channelings, partly because they themselves had negative experiences or associations with Christianity through the church. Do you have any words of encouragement or thoughts for folks like that?
I think that whatever they want to think about that is totally up to them. We all have a unique spiritual path. And whenever we have our public channeling meditations here, one of the last things we do is say the Lord's Prayer. But I always say, if you have a problem with the Lord's Prayer, please don't feel like you have to say it. Just send love and light to the group. Because, some people that, thinking of God as, a male figure is not appropriate. And I can see that. So, people need to choose their own path. We're all unique.
Yeah, and for sure, that is something I've always appreciated about the Law of One, and something I've always appreciated about what I see in all the channel materials, that there's never an insistence that we think about God or Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad in any specific way, that there is always the encouragement for people to think for themselves and figure out for themselves. So appreciate all the thoughts.
Well, Carla was a mystical Christian herself, and she didn't do dogma. She liked the red print in the King James Revised Version of the Bible. So, she was aware of, problems within the church herself.
For sure. Well, thank you again for being here and for taking the time to share that. I did see some questions in the chat window. I wanted to make sure folks have time to do that. So I do see Alina had a question first, and then I saw Josh, and then I saw the Dan, and then I'll go take another look in the chat window. Alina, would you like to unmute your mic and ask a question?
Hi, Jim. It's my second time. Pleasure. I'm just always so excited. I still kind of having hard time wrapping my mind that, I got the books I read and then I get to ask questions. And at first, I think I saw a black cat there.
Oh, you saw black and white one. That was Bosco. I said, you had a beautiful black cat.
It's a random kids just brought in, so we ended up adopting it.
Yeah,
So,
I used to have a black kitty named Chloe.
oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
so cool. I don't know if there's anything special about it, but question is not about the cat. Even though I understand, I told my family this is a second density being and we are helping it. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
so question is about the archetypes. And did Raw mention, maybe I have missed it in the books, about why specifically did it recommend to study uh, archetypes, and I think it was archetypes and Kabbalah or Kabbalah. I remember there was a couple of recommendations, but was quite vague, and I couldn't quite understand why. So I never really done any more research, and it was a little too complex for me. I couldn't quite understand. Uh, like how even start to wrap my mind around it and how it could be related on my this kind of living, a day-to-day living in a way, or even the way of thinking. So if you can expand on that, maybe you come up with a good simplified version of that over the years, it'll be great.
Okay. Yeah. The information we got on the archetypes was the most dense and difficult to understand for sure. So basically, Ross said that the archetypes were a blueprint for the process of spiritual evolution in the third density, how we evolve in mind, in body, and in spirit. And the basic relationship that I've always felt was most important was the archetype, the matrix of the mind is the magician, the conscious mind, the unfed conscious mind. And it is potentiated into activity by the high priestess, the unconscious mind. So when we have catalysts or experiences that might be difficult, our unconscious mind biases the way we look at it according to our pre-incarnative choices. So we see the catalyst one way or another, and the catalyst that comes from that difficult experience is the catalyst of the mind, the empress. And then once that catalyst has been processed, then it becomes the experience of the mind, but is lived in the significator of the mind, which helps. That's the number 5. And then all of that together helps us make transformations in our mind to the great way of the mind, the chariot. So it's just a process of distilling how we use our catalyst, how we grow in mind, body, and spirit. And for those who are really into the archetypes, I think it's quite helpful. I've made an attempt to study them over the years, but I've got to admit that I have not been able to use them in the way that Ross suggested. I've never understood how to become an archetype. I think that's way beyond me. So, do you have any follow-up questions on that?
Wow, that is actually very interesting. We are setting up a group to kind of like study it, and it's definitely, one of the subjects I don't think we have any experts on. Um, I feel like I have been able to use ChatGTP to ask a lot of questions on the material because it's really good on kind of distilling through language, which was difficult to understand when I was just listening to channelings themselves. So other than that, no, I think that something to dive in deep. And I think I had a second question about the densities. I know the Earth's transition into a force now. So do I understand correctly that we would need to pass on to the next kind of life to be able to reincarnate as a force density to continue on as a force density being and be able to see all of the there is experiences in here? Am I getting that kind of correctly?
Right. Apparently now everybody who drops their body, their spirit then will walk into the light, and your violet ray energy center will show how you have been able to use the catalyst of your experience, whether you've been able to open your heart more than 50% of the time in service to others. And then if that is true, if you then you will step aside where the light's too glaring. And if it's fourth density, then you will be part of the fourth density social memory complex that is apparently now forming as people pass into larger life.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
Thank you indeed. Josh, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Jim.
Hey,
Good to
Joshua.
see you. My question comes, we've been having a debate or a discussion from some confusion from our reading sessions on Wednesdays. So the question is, did Ra say that in time space, they can move in time, but not in space? Like we can move around in space, but we can't consciously move in time? If that's correct, then how can Ra or others be in time space on Venus and then be in time space on the sun? In my mind, that's kind of moving in space. That's
Well, I don't know if I can give you a good response to that. I've never really understood how they could move in time, but not in space where they are. It would seem to me that they could do either one. But apparently, in time space, the movement is a kind of a being everywhere at once in the eternal present moment. So you don't really have to move there, you're already there. And when we are, however, are in space time, we're kind of locked into space. We can't move around in time. We move in time very slowly, tick tock, and we get older. But we have a hard time of going into the future or into the past. Ross said that it was only here in the third density that there is a past, a present, and a future. So I guess that has something to do with her not being able to move in space and can move in time.
right. So the confusion is if it's all the present moment and it's just a singularity of time space that everything is everywhere, how do they say like, oh, we're on the sun? Because to me, that's a set, location tied to a specific geography or space.
Yeah, that's a good question too. It seems like in this eternal present moment, it is possible that everything you can think of is happening at the same time. And that somehow all of us here on Earth and throughout the various galaxies in our universe are in this same time lateral, I think that Quo referred to it in one of the channelings, and are moving together in that particular experience. But there could be others that are happening at the same time. Even some people have incarnations on two different planets, and those are usually for beginners, by the way, that need to get more experience to learn how to give without expectation of return, to serve others 51% or more of the time. So there's some difficult concepts for sure in the raw contact.
It's a really good question. I really appreciate your asking that, Josh. It's definitely something I have struggled with for a long time. Do you think, Jim, is it fair to say that time space and space time like coexist at the same time, so that when Ra says that, you know, they're on the sun, or the Council of Nine is in Saturn's rings, that in the sense in space time they are there, but in a time space sense it is a non-local kind of thing? Is it possible that both of those things are true at the same time?
I believe it is possible. I think, excuse me, another aspect of time space is it's more the metaphysical or spiritual reality. And the space time is where we're here in the third density. So hope that helps a
Right.
little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I don't know. Any follow-ups on that, Josh?
I guess the only thing is no, well, this isn't from other material with the life review process, and after leaving the body, some say you join your soul group, or you go to certain locations for further study or learning in between lives. So to me, that seems like there's a movement to different discrete locations, and that's all in time space. So I don't know if that, do you see a lot agreement with the Confederation's description there?
Yeah, I do. I think what you're talking about is the books by Dr. Michael Newton. Talks about life between lives and spiritual families, and sometimes people partake in one aspect in an incarnation, a relationship with a person in that family, and then it changes in the next one. And sometimes even some of the spiritual family stays without the third density as serves as guides. So I think that's all quite congruent with the raw contact. It's just an elaboration as far as I can tell.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joshua.
Yeah, thank you for asking a great question, as always. Dan, did you have a question you wanted to ask? And then after that, I believe we have a question from Hannah. Hannah, I think, is not able to talk right now, but I can read her question for her. And then Ashley, I believe. Go ahead, Dan. Let's see, Dan, it looks like your mic is unmuted, but we are not hearing you. It's not coming through. You might need to check the mic settings on your Zoom camera, like click on the little mic icon, click on the little upward pointing V next to it, and then select a different microphone to try speaking through. And we'll come back to you. Let's see, Hannah had a question, and it's in the chat window, and I'm going to read it out to you. Jim, Hannah just wanted to know if you have any tips or tricks for quickly getting yourself to stop and recenter when you feel yourself operating not out of a place of love, or a way to get out of autopilot and consciously choose and have love at the forefront of the mind.
Well, sometimes I tend to go too fast in doing what I'm doing in a physical sense, because I've set myself up to do a lot of work in my house and in the weather that allows gardens. Gardens are gone now pretty much, but I still have to go out there and use my trimmer, cut off the dead limbs and things for the plants. So when I get going too fast, or with Bosco, when I'm trying to get him to eat some food so I can give him his insulin injection, and he keeps turning his nose up at it one time after another, and I start saying, Bosco, you got to do this. Come on, you got to eat to live. And then I get a little angry at him. I say, oh, relax, relax, relax. take it slower. You're going too fast. Your expectations are too high. And then I try to calm down and start again. Okay, Bosco, let's see if you like this food. Okay, buddy. And sometimes it makes a difference. In me for sure, but sometimes for him too.
So is the key just hitting a pause button, like recognizing when you're like not in that place and just kind of stopping to, I don't know, recenter?
Yeah, actually, I got the impulse to relax and enjoy. Carl and I would drive back to Nebraska, where my mom was still living after my father passed into larger life. And as we were coming back from, we were going down from St. Joseph, Missouri, down to St. Louis. I think Interstate, well, what is it, 26? And I said, what do I need to do to stop, going so fast on things? And I believe it was Ra said, relax and enjoy. And so I've tried to use that as a little mantra over the years, and it works. Just reminding myself, catching myself going too fast.
Relax and enjoy sounds like a great mantra for sure. I should definitely try that myself. Hannah, or if anyone else had follow-ups on that, feel free to let me know or put it in the chat window. Otherwise, I believe Dan said his mic is working. You want to try it again, Dan?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. Hi, Jim. Pleasure to talk to you. First
Hey,
time.
Dan.
So, I was going to ask a specific question about alien beings, about mantis beings, but I think in general, I see a lot of people putting on forums their experiences of either being abducted or seeing orbs or just having, meeting other beings in alien in nature. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that, or has that ever been talked about in Quo or any other channelings? Thank you.
No, as far as I know, we've never had it in any of our channelings. I have from various other friends who say they've had these experiences and they've told me about them and they sound like, they actually happened. But I really couldn't figure out if they were positive or negative or just something that was unable to be determined. Or so I don't have any good information on that, I'm afraid. I've heard of them and I know they very likely do exist.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Yes, thank you for your question. I'm sorry I couldn't do better to answer it.
It's a great question. I see Ashley and then Adam, and I think those are all the questions that I saw in the chat window. So we still have time. If anybody has a question they want to ask, just go ahead and put it in the chat window, and we'll make sure you have time. Why don't you go ahead, Ashley?
Hi, Jim. Thank you for joining us again. Happy to be with you. I wanted to know if you have any mantras that you recite or any personal affirmations that you recite daily.
No, other than relax and enjoy. That's about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was short and sweet.
Yeah.
Adam had a question.
Thank you, Jim, for being here and Jonathan for hosting this. I wanted to ask you, Jim, if you personally learned the LBRP in a book by reading it and then practicing it, or like practicing it with a person and learning from like person to person teach learning experience. And then secondly, I'd like to ask if you feel like any certain parts of the LBRP are most important to have like a powerful experience in it, like breath work or visualizations, any anchoring tools. If you wanted to share anything about that when you first learned it.
Well, we learned the Banishing Ritual of the Lesser Pentagram during the raw contact. In session 72, we had to delay that session a couple of times because our friend of negative polarity, in the meditation before we went into the raw contact room, had been able to put Carla to sleep. And we didn't know if she was in trance or sleep or what was going on. So Dawn had been into white ritual magic long before the raw contact. It was one of his ways. He was trying to explore the nature of reality and trying to figure, put the puzzle pieces together as to how everything worked. So we began performing that in the living room, and right away it worked. And we discovered that Carla had not been in trance. She had simply been asleep, but we couldn't determine that. So that was how we first discovered it. After that, we performed it together every time we had a raw contact session. We performed it in the living room. And then we had our meditation that we had before the raw contact. And then we went into the room we used for the raw contact. And Ra gave us the walking the circle of one as our form of protection there. So that's how it became part of our group's work. And I continue to perform it here in this room every day, every morning.
So did Don guide you when he first did that in session 72, and he like walked you through it, like taught you that right there, or did like he show you a book or something? Or
yeah, basically the way it worked to begin with, Don would be in the middle, Carla would be on one side, and I would be on the other side, and he would be saying the words, and we'd all have our arms spread in the proper position for that portion of the content, the ritual. And then we would all turn together. You turn three times, so eventually you go around in a circle. And then once we had learned it, Carla and I had learned it, then we would take the place of the one in the middle and keep going like that. So eventually we all were able to perform it and provide protection in the living room.
so over time you learned it by like practicing it in the physical, and you
Right.
it just came to you. It's like, oh, this is how it's done. Awesome. Good
Yeah,
to know.
we added one thing to it. Yod-he Vahe is at one point, and we added the shin, Yod-he Shin Vahe. And Ross suggested that was a good idea because that kind of in the magical term, that's the name of Jesus. And that Jesus had a great deal of meaning for Carla. So they said that was a good way to alter the Banishing Ritual.
So do you recommend people learning the law of one? This is something they might get into as a foundational like habit or ritual that might help them balance themselves throughout their life journey?
I don't think it has a real personal application. I think that it's something that is done for others, and that needs to be the focus. I don't think it's a way of processing catalyst or learning more about ourselves. I think it's a way of providing a space in which there has been a purification and a wall of light that cannot be penetrated by negative entities, so that other people who are spiritual seekers of truth, like in our public channeling meditations, can come here and know that this is a safe place, and they can go ahead and ask their questions, and Quo can go ahead and channel their responses.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate your question.
That's a great question, Adam. Appreciate your asking. And I did want to let folks know if they want to find more details on protection rituals, including the Banishing Ritual. If you go to the L&L Research website, find the raw contact, the link to the raw contact, and scroll down on that page and you'll find a list of other additional resources, including a link that says protection rituals that gives you directions for how to do the Banishing Ritual, as well as other magical rituals. Andy, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just to clarify. So when the three of you at the beginning of the ritual started, I'm assuming you're three abreast. And then when you turned, were you lined up one behind the other, or did you turn so that you were then again three abreast?
The one in the middle had the least ground to cover. The ones on both sides had to walk a little faster, forwards and on the one left side, backwards on the other side. So it was sort of a little dance we had to practice. As time went on, we got better at it.
Cool, thank you. Can I ask another follow-up question? So do you ever I went to Catholic school where we said the Lord's Prayer, and it got to the point where we'd just say it, and if I would have trouble saying it if I didn't say it quickly, because it became kind of like ingrained, and it was just like something that's basically chanted with no meaning to it. Does it ever get to that for you when you're doing the ritual?
Well, the Lord's Prayer is something that we use right before our public channeling meditations. And I try to go slowly because I'm usually the one that's, now let's say together the Lord's Prayer. I try to go slowly so each word has meaning and we don't just skip over it just to get it done. But again, some people don't feel a resonance with the Lord's Prayer. So we say, you don't have to say it, just send love and light to everyone.
Does that answer your questions, Andy?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, those are great questions. Everyone's questions. Always appreciate your being here. I learn something new every time. Mimi, you had a question you wanted to ask?
Writing down the Banishing Ritual. You can hear me, Jim?
Yep.
Good. So I was wondering about extraterrestrial contact, open contact. And years ago, Aaron, there was a vote going on with the Space Confederation, some council, and anybody could participate. And he encouraged us to meditate and to vote on contact. So it sort of interested me ever since. What have your contacts said about open contact? And I know we've talked in the past about, the release of the information in the New York Times and the Department of Defense about spaceship sightings. And I believe you said that there were going to be more and it was going to possibly lead to open acknowledgement. But what about actual open contact?
Well, from what I remember of the raw contact, what Raw had to say about it, that there would probably not be such because you have to have a consensus of the entire planet's population in order for that to occur. Because we're all connected now. When they walked among the Egyptians and there was open contact, there was a great deal of space between various cultures. And cultures didn't seem to have much knowledge of each other at that time. So it doesn't look like that would be liable to happen here on the planet because we have the internet and all other ways of communication. Just nothing is ever hidden. And most people would probably not want that contact, or who knows?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Josh, did you have a follow-up on that?
No, it was another question. I meant to put it in the chat. I'll go after. Who's next?
Yeah, I see Elaine, and then I wasn't seeing any other questions after that. So if you wanted to ask after Elaine, that would be great. And I did want to let folks know we're still doing pretty good on time. So if you have a question that you've been holding back on, there's no such thing as a bad question. We generally try to avoid asking questions about transient things or conspiracy theories or things that really aren't going to be that important in another 100,000 of years. And we try to focus on enduring spiritual principles. But I mean, any question that's really related to the law of one and how to live it or about Jim's personal experiences, it's fair game. Elaine, did you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jim, for being with us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Thank you very well. You mentioned that you have felt the presence of Jesus and Carla throughout the years. And I'm wondering if you've ever felt the presence of Don, or if there's been any kind of communication, maybe in dreams or anything like that from Don.
The first year after Carla passed into larger life, I had about 100 dreams that she was in, and many of them had Dawn in them too. And occasionally I would have a dream with just Dawn. But most of the time it's with Carla. And oddly enough, well, I'll give you a little history here. About 2 channeling sessions ago, it was November 7th was the 40th anniversary of Dawn's passing into larger life. And it also happened to be 50 years since Carla first learned to channel. And so Gary gave me the first words that came out of her mouth. I'm having great difficulty with this instrument. And so I Googled to see the date of that. And it was February 23rd, 1974. So now, whenever I go to my computer and go to our website, and I'm ready to search for some phrase or word, those words show up. Instead of, it usually says start typing, and you type something in, but mine says I'm having great difficulty with this instrument. So it's been almost 2 months now that it happens every time. So I think that's Carla.
Wow. Okay, so in the search bar, you're saying when
Yeah.
you go to the website, those words are in the search bar.
Without me doing anything. All I have to do is to go to the website.
Wow.
Wow. That's really cool. So she's really tech savvy now.
See if she can fix your Zoom connection.
Yeah.
But I've heard people all over the world say they've had contact with Carla.
Yeah.
And I've just had last night. I heard from a friend of ours that knew Don and Carla before I did. She said that one of our mutual friends, Obine Kirtley, who lived in France but married a fellow from Bardstown, Kentucky, that their daughter had been contacted by Carla, and she was trying to help her with going through the dark night of the soul. And so I'm trying to get in contact with her, but she's in France, and I told her send me an email, but she tried to text me this morning, and I got a little beep on my phone, but I lost totally the message, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I had our friend Diane ask the woman to send it to me by email. So we'll see what kind of contact we've got there. But Carla's been talking to her too.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What a beautiful story, and what a great question, Elaine. Thank you for asking and opening the door to that. Josh, you had a question you wanted to ask? And then I see Renat after that.
Yes, thank you. Quick question. Are you aware if the team or you have a desire or plans to increase the size or capacity of your LL research gatherings to allow more people to attend, since they seem to be selling out rather quickly nowadays?
I believe all of them except here at my house, the first homecoming gathering, have had success in accommodating everyone who wants to be there. But our particular gathering last year sold out within an hour, and we had 20 people that were on the wait list. So we've been looking for a larger venue, and we thought we had one, and we still may have had one in Prospect, Kentucky, which is about 15 miles from here. It's actually just kind of like a suburb of Louisville. And it looks like it would work quite well. It's got 25 acres of land. It's got a beautiful meeting house where we could also have meals, 8 cooks, so cook whatever we want, and a place up on behind trees, a little forest of trees, and up on a rise, a place large enough to put a tent, because down where the place is we would eat is right next to a road, and it might be kind of noisy there. But so we were thinking that might be the place. But then I just talked to Trish the other day, and the fellow who was telling us everything that they do for us there was really outgoing and gave us all kinds of good information. But he all of a sudden stopped communicating, and she's not able to figure out what's going on there. And also, it's on the same time where we get our tent, Rent and Rave tent here in Louisville, stopped communicating too. So cannot figure out what's going on. So she's looking around for another location and may have found one in central Kentucky, around Danville, Kentucky, which is probably about 60 miles from here. So it would be a long trip for me. And I'm not sure what the accommodations, motels and hotels would be there. But yeah, we're definitely looking. There has to be more. We need to serve everybody who wants to be at these gatherings, because that's what they're all for. Carla wanted to do that back in 1995 with the first one, because she was aware through her communications with Seekers of Truth that so many of them did not have anyone to talk to about their spiritual journey. They were alone, and they needed to be with somebody else that they could talk to about that and not be thought to be crazy. So we want everybody that has those kind of feelings and situations to be able to come and talk to each other and share the love and light of the one creator, however it expresses through them.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a beautiful testament to the massive spiritual awakening that's happening, that so many people are learning about the material and want to gather to be able to talk with other seekers. And
Oh,
huge
yeah.
thanks to Trish, who has really worked her butt off to organize all of these events in Kentucky and East Coast and West Coast and Europe and so on. And the challenge of finding venues that are suitable and able to handle those numbers, not easy. But appreciate the question and hope we can work it out. Have we not had a question?
Yeah, I hope I'm enough in the light. I feel very shadowy today. Yeah, I had a follow-up question about people and, communicating with Carla. Does that mean that she has not reincarnated since?
Right. That she's in what we would call the spirit world, or the inner planes, where all of us are before we incarnate into this third density illusion, before we go through the forgetting and go through the veil of the veil of forgetting.
Yeah.
So she's on the other side. She sees the nature of reality, and she's probably capable of what's called bilocation. She can be in more than one place at one time. And that's another thing that I don't understand how it works. But I think Dr. Michael Newton spoke to that too.
Well, now I will ask for her to communicate with me. Carla. But my question was, actually, it was something you said, Jonathan, in the podcast we made about love and fear. And I said that, well, we're in the third density, and that's an illusion. But when I'm paraphrasing, can't remember the exact, but I said something to the effect of the fourth density is not an illusion. And you said everything is an illusion, also that. So maybe you were joking, because half the time you're joking. But then I thought, I think I could appreciate a list of what is not an illusion, what I can hold on to and cultivate that is not an illusion. Because I'm in Israel, where everything is a freaking illusion. Everything. Really, the last, I don't know, year or two has been like the law, everything I've learned in the law of one really helped me keep alive and breathing and learning from this, like how people react and react to their reaction and all that. Like, wow, this is such a great case study. But in order to keep breathing and keep being alive, I need to know what is not an illusion. I think I do, but you probably have a better list than mine. So I have my pen, I'm writing.
Okay.
And hit it.
I think you have to go back to the one great original thought of love, of the creator that decided it wanted to know itself. And that created what could be called an illusion of the 8 densities of the octave of creation, that everyone in them could be an illusion, although all of them are the creator, and that is not an illusion because we all have the love of the creator flowing through us. So it's what Carla would call a paradox. And whenever she saw a paradox, she always knew there was a spiritual principle involved. So I think that you could say that everything's an illusion. The seeming separation between all of us is an illusion because we're all one in the love and light and unity of the infinite creator. But it seems like it's an illusion. And yet, what really is an illusion? Can love ever be an illusion in any form? Everyone has a love of creator flowing through them. So I think it is a paradox. All is an illusion and nothing is an illusion because everything is made out of love. That's the basic feature of the creator. The unity of the creator used its entity, its desire to know itself and form light by focusing through love, and the light condensed into the creation around us. So everything is the creator. but
So the
here in the
creator is
third,
not the
part,
creator and the essence of love is those two things that we can hang on to in
right,
desperate times.
because
That is not an illusion.
we all have those within us because we are all the creator. The creator is everything. This computer, this chair you're sitting on, the house you're living in, everything is photons vibrating at a certain rate of frequency and angles of rotation that our scientists cannot see the energy, but they know it's there. So everything is the love of the creator. We all are the creator.
It's a great question. And Renat, I hope you got a better answer from Jim than you got from me.
Keep practicing, Jonathan. Keep practicing.
For sure. I see Grace has a question, and then Keith, I believe, has a question, and then Rooney, and then I think we're going to wrap it up at that point. Grace, would you like to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes. Hi, Jim. Good morning.
Good morning.
In the raw contact, Ron mentioned that you, Carla, and Don were all wanderers from the fifth or sixth density. I was just wondering if you guys had parsed out who was from which density.
I have heard that question so many times, and I have had so many answers going through my head, and I can't give you anything with any solid belief that that's the way it is. So I'm sorry, I don't know. It's a natural question to ask, that's for sure.
Thanks, Jim.
We will find out in due course of time, I'm sure. Keith, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yes, I did. Hi, Jim.
Yeah.
Good day to you. So grateful for you to be here. I'm just going to paraphrase my question. It has to do with the idea of needing quote protection from negatively polarized catalysts, and it's really more of an overarching question. My impression, at least, is in going through all of the raw material, that there was a pretty significant emphasis on that need for protection, and just earlier in today's session, it came up again. My sense in this, and I have not read all of the rest of the material, so I can't say that I've gone through all the rest of the material, but it just seems like there progressively over, in quotes, time, over that illusion of time, it appears as though there's a less of an emphasis on that. And I don't know whether I'm reading that correctly or not. So if you could just elaborate on that topic generally, it would be real helpful.
Well, I think that,
let me know.
okay, I'll do the best I can.
Okay.
When you're in a group, or if you happen to be an individual with a great deal of light about you, it's mostly, I think, when groups get together and they are seeking more information concerning how they can progress on their spiritual journeys, and they're finding some information they can share with others, that kind of a light attracts the attention of negatively oriented entities, because that light is a power that they would like to take for themselves. And so in order to keep them from taking it for themselves, there's usually a kind of protection that people can utilize that will keep that from happening. And for us, it was the Banishing Ritual, Lesser Pentagram, and Walking the Circle of One. Other groups I know have used sage, burning sage, and walking around in the room to help that be a protection. I think the most important thing, though, is the intention of the protection. However you want to manifest it, whether it's in a ritual or burning of sage, or a visualization of seeing an armor of light around you or around your group. I think that is the way to do it. As time has gone on, I don't think that we have had, during our channelings or people's experiences here, had any kind of psychic greetings or attacks that occurred during the raw contact. And I don't know why that is, but I'm glad for that. So
Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, well, it appears, I don't know, it might be too much to infer a trend from that, but the issue came up, exposures to some other materials where there is this emphasis on the transition that we're going through resulting in each of us having more of an ability to essentially emit our light into the darkness, and the kinds of protections that were perhaps required at a period, a different point of our progression is no longer as needed. And I just wanted to, and it occurred to me that there appeared to be the similar kind of sort of progression in the law of one, sort of progression of the material, and I just thought the thought occurred to me to ask.
Yeah, that's an interesting
not
point.
That well formed a question, but I was just curious about if there was any trend you observed. But yes, so yes, it answers my question, but it's not something that can be just closed and sort of that's the end of the story, right? So
Yeah, I don't think there's, no, if you produce light, you will attract attention.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great question. Thank you, Keith. Rooney, I believe you have the last question for today.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I have a question about the time lateral, which is to me the most fascinating concept that's been shared through LL research in Crow. So during 10 sessions from 2003 to 2007, only Carla channeled this information about the time lateral, this kind of alternate timeline we are on, described by the Confederation, that allows us to essentially make the choice for a longer time. It has the effect of extending the third density energies available for us. So it's this very complex concept of like having alternate time track and having that open, and they related to also the 2012 date and so. But it's yeah. So one of my questions is there's kind of a clue in the May 25, 2003 session that Carla heard about this concept from someone else, because close through Carla says in the beginning of that, it is in your hands, each of you. We would not take this learning or this service from you. The energies of your planet at this time are, as this instrument has heard it described by her teacher, off on a sidetrack, a time lateral. Then it continues, but I'm curious to who her teacher could be, because I haven't heard about Carla's teacher who introduced this concept, apparently.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it was a fellow in California who, I'm not sure how she came in contact with him, but they had a correspondence by letters. And I think it was occasionally by email, but it started out with letters. And he seemed to have a great deal of information about the way things were working on the planet. And Carla was impressed with what he had to say. And this time lateral was part of what he had to share about how there was an opportunity for the population of planet Earth to have more time to make its choice, to point the compass in the positive sense, and for those who were negative in the negative sense, so that there could be a graduation of the population of the planet Earth. And that time lateral would extend the time, because what Ra had said in that same regard was that there was about 100 to 700 years left in the third density experience here on Earth, but they couldn't be more specific because of the volatility of the population of Earth. So I think the time lateral has a relationship to that, so that the more time can be given for people to become awakened, seekers of truth, for one thing, because so many now are in what Ra called the sinkhole of indifference, and without any idea that the purpose of their life is to become spiritual seekers and to polarize their consciousness in a way that can become the axis upon which the creation turns for them throughout the succeeding densities. So I think that's basically where it came from, and that time lateral.
Remember his name, this fellow?
At this time, I don't remember his name. I do know that upstairs in Carla's office is a box full of his letters. So if I wanted to find out, I could find out his name, but I haven't looked at that for years.
Okay.
That is a great question, Rooney. Something I have truly been interested in as well. If it's okay with you, Jim, maybe I'll follow up after this Q&A, and maybe we can get that name for Rooney and for next time.
We can give it a
Otherwise,
try.
yeah, if you have time to, we can take that up offline. Otherwise, again, Rooney, thank you for asking the question. I saw Sue Wen jumped in and said she has a really quick question about channeling. If we would like to do that, that would be great. And then we are going to call that the last question for today. Go ahead, Sue Wen.
Thank you, Jonathan. Hi, Jim. I have a question about challenging before the channeling. I know about it, but for channeling Ra, Carla is in a trance. How is she going to challenge the source?
She was able to challenge Ra in the first session, because the first session was a conscious channeling where she and Dawn were attempting to help a student from the Sunday night meditation learn how to channel. So when she heard the response of Ra, she said, do you come in the name of Jesus Christ? And can you say Jesus Christ is Lord? And she always did that 3 times. So she had that as her, you might say, the foundation challenge. And then after that, we did the Banishing Ritual in the living room and the circle of walking the circle of 1 in the Ra room. So no other negatively oriented entities could get into the circle of 1 and had caused any problems for Carla.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is a great question, Sue Wen. Thank you for asking. And I wanted to thank everyone for being here, and as always, much appreciate your questions. It has been a great discussion and a great learning experience. And Jim, of course, as you well know, we have one more item of business to take care of today. And
what's that?
That is, of course, the pop quiz. That is really the main reason why you had here today. Pop quizzes, of course, are just kind of something we like to do in these sessions, just to add a little bit of fun and levity to our otherwise serious metaphysical conversations. So, Jim, a couple months ago, we had a pop quiz on your hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. Today, I'm going to quiz you on my hometown of Seattle, or Seat, as I believe is the correct pronunciation of the name of the leader of the Suquamish and Duwamish people who originally lived here. I believe so, yes. So today I'm going to ask you 4 multiple choice questions about this city's place in pop culture. See how many you can get correct. As always, the points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. If you learned something new and fun and interesting about the city that our study group is based in, then everyone is a winner. Your first question. I believe most people, the first thing they would think of about Seattle would be the Space Needle. So the question is, what year was the Space Needle built? Was it 1960, 1962, or 1964? What do you think?
1960.
60 is a good guess. Correct answer is, in fact, 1962, the same year that I was born. I am the same age as the Space Needle. It was for the World's Fair, interestingly enough, in 1962. Has not happened since. But it's a beautiful looking building, and it's unusual, I think, to find something built that long ago that still looks futuristic today.
Almost looks like the Eiffel Tower.
It is Seattle's Eiffel Tower, I would say, for sure. The Eiffel Tower from space. Your second question. The name of Starbucks coffee, probably the second thing people think of when they think of Seattle, came from what classic American novel? Was it A, Moby Dick by Herman Melville, B, The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, or C, The Sea Wolf by Jack London?
C, Sea Wolf, Jack London.
That's the one I would have guessed as well. But the correct answer, in fact, is Moby Dick, of all things. I believe Starbuck was the name of the first mate on Captain Ahab's ship. So
really?
I wouldn't have guessed. I only discovered this like about 2 days ago when I was reading the pop quiz. So anyone watching this, you just learned the origin of the name of Starbucks. I think they chose the mermaid as the logo to represent the allure of caffeine and coffee, which anyone who lives in Seattle could attest to. How about your third question? I think you're doing better on Louisville, if I remember correctly.
I was 3 for 3 on that
Yeah,
one.
you were 3 for 3 on Louisville. Yeah. Well, we'll re-quiz you on this next time and see how you do. This one I'm sure you're going to love. Which of the following was not a grunge band from the Seattle area? Grunge band was a big music thing back in the late 80s, early 90s. There were quite a few bands from the Seattle area that had this punk, hardcore metal sound. So which of the following was not a grunge band from the Seattle area? Was it A, Nirvana, B, Soundgarden, C, Screaming Trees, D, Smashing Pumpkins, E, Alice in Chains, F, Mudhoney, or G, Pearl Jam? Ask your higher self for help on this one.
A, Nirvana.
A, Nirvana is indeed the picture of the band there, who is probably the most well-known grunge band from around this area. But the correct answer, I believe, would be Smashing Pumpkins. Smashing Pumpkins had kind of a grunge-like sound, but they're from Chicago, not from Seattle. None of them are any good compared to the Allman Brothers, so you're not missing anything on this question. Your last one, and I think you might actually know this one. Whose UFO sighting near Seattle in 1947 led to the use of the term flying saucer? Was it A, Kenneth Arnold, B, Travis Walton, or C, Gordon Cooper?
A, Kenneth Arnold.
That is correct, indeed, Kenneth Arnold. Yeah, for folks who don't know this, the Kenneth Arnold sighting was credited with being the first of the modern era of UFO sightings. The well-known Roswell incident from Roswell, New Mexico happened about 2 weeks after this. But Kenneth Arnold was an experienced pilot with about 4,000 hours of flying time. He was a member of an Idaho search and rescue unit. And yeah, it was on June 24th, 1947, about 20 miles west of Mount Rainier. Saw a formation of 9 shiny objects flying in formation. They seemed to be behaving in ways that normal airplanes don't. He actually timed how long it took them to fly from Mount Rainier to Mount Adams and calculated their speed at about 1,200 miles an hour, 2 times faster than any airplane at that time. And the news reports at that time coined the term flying saucer after Arnold's descriptions. Am I remembering correctly, Jim, that Don spent quite a bit of time flying around the country talking to people who saw UFOs?
He did, and that was because he was taking flying lessons from a fellow at the Bowman Field. It used to be the main airport in Louisville, and I'm trying to remember his name. Oh my goodness! It was in 1947. It was in late 1947, and he was flying back from Georgia to Louisville with 2 wingmen. And Godwin Tower in Fort Knox, Kentucky, had gotten a call from the Kentucky State Police saying that 30 different people had called in saying there was a strange object over Mayfield, Kentucky. And did they have any way of checking it out? And so the Godwin Tower asked Captain Tom Mantell, who was flying a B-27 World War II plane, if he could check it out. So he and his wingman decided to check it out. One of the wingmen had to continue on to Louisville because he's running out of fuel. And they saw this structure. It looked like an upside down ice cream cone. It was metallic. And as he approached closer, he said, "I can see there are beings inside of it. And I've got to get closer to check it out." And when he said that, the flying saucer went straight up. And he tried to follow it. And so once he got to 20,000 feet, he passed out because he didn't have oxygen. So he crashed and was killed. And so that got Don interested in, he was 17 years old at that time, interested in, what was that? Is there intelligence beyond our intelligence in this earth, this world, in this universe? So that started his spiritual journey when he was 17 years old.
Wow. And Secrets of the UFO was a book that he wrote that was compilation of what he learned in talking to folks.
Yeah. He and Carla co-wrote that book.
Wow. Yeah. Which is one of many books that can be found in the Illinois Research Library. Well, Jim, thank you so much for playing our little game, and thanks again for giving your time here. It's been a joy as always. Did you have any last thoughts, reflections you wanted to share with folks before we say?
I just want to thank everybody for your questions today. They came from the heart, I could tell, and that just means so much to me to be able to talk to you from my heart, because that's the way to be, heart to heart, open hearts. And I thank you all, and I look forward to future times together. And I hope that when you go on your journey today, after we're all done here, that you can share the love and the light of the Creator with everybody that you meet. That's the way we spread the seeds of the Creator's love all around us, and hopefully they'll continue to grow. And this planet can become a fourth density planet in the positive sense. It is a great jump and a great leap and a great hope that Ross said it was possible. Not probable, but possible.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thank you so much for being here and for showing us the way of the open heart. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. For everyone who joined us on the Zoom call today, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. For everyone watching this on video at some time in the near or distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. Sending you our love light and receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. Namaste.